Are we on? The $1,000,000 question, am I on? I feel like I'm on. I feel like I'm on. Am I on? Somebody tell me something. Say some words to me, people. Type something in there. Can you hear the words coming out of my mouth? I am live. Hi, peace, good to see you. Still don't know if I've got sound, though. I'll just assume I am making noise. No sound. Sound great. Loud and clear. Howdy. All right, Dave Rush, I'm going to assume that I'm having sound because 2 people said I'm sound. There we go. Okay, and we're alive. Fantastic. Hey, everybody, this is Mike Meyers. Welcome you to the ongoing, continuous, never, nonstop, all kinds of fun Mike Meyers Ask Me Anything live stream. This takes place every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 2 o'clock Central Daylight Time. The goal of this live stream is to provide those of us who are struggling at home because of the coronavirus an opportunity to talk about the topics that are pertaining mainly to the CompTIA IT Fundamentals, A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus, although we can certainly go outside of that. Along with any technical issues you might want to come up with, those are also very, very welcome as well. Keep in mind that this is a Ask Mike Anything, which means you ask me questions and I answer them. So the goal of this is that you ask me questions and I answer them. With that attitude in mind, we will run till 4 o'clock Central Daylight Time or until the questions end. So sometimes we end a little early. Sometimes, well, on Wednesday we actually ran overtime, didn't we? Yeah, Nigel, good for you guys. It's wide open here in Texas. I'm actually worried about Elaine Batzer coming. So I've kind of put it to her. Texas has had a big spike, but the Houston area itself did have a big spike, but for the last 3 days it's gone way, way, way down. So of course, that takes the news agencies a couple of days to catch up and the government to catch up. So this is actually funny. So tomorrow I'm going tubing down the Guadalupe River. It's very, very hot here. The water's cold. It feels good. But these rivers during the summertime become quite crowded. So the governor of Texas has said there is no tubing on any of the rivers. So I called up the guy who I rent the tubes from. He goes, "You are correct. There is no tubing. However, there's still kayaking. So I am going to be kayaking down the Guadalupe River tomorrow. Get out there, trying to do healthy things instead of just sitting around drinking wine, which I am very, very good at, I might add. I'm like superpower wine. About 20 years ago, I was sitting here drinking some wine, and I go, this stuff called Merlot seems to taste different from this stuff called Zinfandel. I wonder what the difference is. And, oh boy. So I went from about 0 to 100 kilometers an hour very, very quickly. I took all these courses, and so I'm not a wine snob, I'm a wine slob. But I do love all wine as long as it comes from France. I am a huge fanatic for French wines, particularly Burgundies. But, with me trying to lose weight, my alcohol consumption has dropped precipitously. Look at my hand. It's not shaking anymore. So that's kind of the goal today. We're going to be talking about NTFS some today. This is so embarrassing. I forgot who asked the question about NTFS, but in particular, they're asking about NTFS on a domain. And I'm like, yeah, no problem. I'll set up a domain controller. And I actually had a Windows Server virtual machine already set up, and I forgot the password. I mean, so embarrassing. I forgot the password. So for the last 10 minutes, I've been in a panic trying to reinstall Windows Server quickly. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to domains, but to be honest with you, NTFS is a pretty big topic. So if we can just do NTFS from a work group attitude, I think that's perfectly fine. A couple of interesting things came up today. Number one interesting thing is I got an unsolicited phone call from EC Council, the people who do Certified Ethical Hacker. And this happens. Salespeople just go through like LinkedIn accounts or they do Google searches or whatever it might be. And they thought I was a school because I do register as a school through CompTIA. And so here's this gal from EC Council giving me a big sales pitch. Lovely lady. And I was like, I'm not really a school. I'm really like you, a creator of products, which I then, have customers like LinkedIn and Udemy, and we sell them ourselves, and government, and basically anybody who can write us a check, we'll sell it to. But anyway, lovely lady has a lot of information about EC Council and Certified Ethical Hacker in particular. And I asked her if she would like to come on the show here. And she's going to be checking her clearance with her boss. I don't want to say her name until we actually can get her on, but it'll be a real cool opportunity to talk about the Certified Ethical Hacker certification, and which is something that a lot of people, once you get past the Security Plus, is something that is worthy of talking about. So I thought that was pretty cool. The other thing that is important, and I don't want to say this wrong. Let me pull this up real quick. About a month ago, I guess, Microsoft made a big announcement. And basically, oh, man, I mean, I like Teams, but it's really, really hard sometimes to just get to information sometimes. I can't find it. Teams is a powerful tool, but still frustrating. Anyway, the bottom line is that Microsoft has announced that home groups are deprecated, which means there are no more home groups. Now, I will tell you that I'm running on Windows 10 19.09, and there still are home group settings, but they don't seem to work. Those of us who have upgraded to Windows 2004 or 2404, I forget what the number is, the latest update, there is no home groups of any form anywhere. So this brings up an interesting issue for trainers like me, because, I mean, we know that on the A Plus and Net Plus, I forget, that there are home group questions on the CompTIA exams. So what do we do? It's like, well, it becomes very challenging because CompTIA is not going to take these questions out, folks. Not until the next version, which is, at least a year and a half away. So it becomes a bit of an issue. Like, for example, if you've got a copy of Windows 10 and you keep it upgraded like you should, your home group settings are going to disappear. So how do you even practice with home groups if you don't have home group settings to even play with? The answer is you don't. So this is always a big challenge. I've got a call into James Stanger at CompTIA, who's like their big evangelist. Guy's smart as a whip and a real brother nerd, really like the guy. And so I'm going to talk to him about it, and hopefully we'll get some information. Still trying to get a hold of Network Chuck. No answer yet. I'm sure he's a busy guy like me, so he'll come around when he can. Yeah, still no Network Chuck. All right, let's take a look. First of all, let's see if we got questions wise. Trying to get to the questions faster these days. Oh, the whole gang, everybody's here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got a smaller crowd today, actually. That's fine. What's good, Mike? What's good? I'm good. It's okay, Nigel. Everything's better than America. Everything's better than America. I'm just looking. Oh, Scott, you put up the, oh, thank you. Guys, Scott Jernigan put up the post from Microsoft. In fact, I want to look at it. Yeah. Isn't that funny? Okay, they're updating Cortana. They're streamlining Cortana. Now, Windows to Go, which was never a big deal. Bunch of junk here. I'm going to scroll past all the silliness. Home group is gone. Automatically connecting to open hotspots will be something that they're bringing in. Disabled it. And now, oh, they're removing it. That's good. I've never been a big fan of automatically connecting to free wireless hotspots, and I think Microsoft finally got to it. The XPS viewer is going, you're going to have to install it manually now. I actually like the XPS viewer. It can be very handy, especially if you're on a system and you don't have a printer, you just want to send it out to XPS and look at it. I think XPS viewer is a good tool. Nothing wrong with that. And this is just the link that Scott Jernigan put up there for us. This is, oh man, these are going back to these are going all the way down to old 1703 version. Those are the biggies. Yeah, all right. Yeah, home group is going away. So I'm actually curious, did anybody else other than me actually use home group? I liked it. It was a very convenient tool, and it was cool because it ran on IPv6. So I like that very, very much. All righty. There we go. Oh, here, yeah, I can show that screen, Scott. Hang on. Yeah, let me scroll this up. So that's the URL right there. I don't know if you guys can read that, but it's the same one as Scott. And this is from the end of May, so this is not quite a month old. So, good stuff. All right. All right, so back to questions. We don't have a lot of questions. This could be a short day today. Mike could be heading for the river. Dun-dun-dun. Tolowit, you bought yourself a Ubiquity Amplify HD mesh router. That's actually a very cool router. I've played with that one a little bit. What makes it even more fun is because it's a mesh router, Ubiquity will sell you satellites, so you actually get mesh, which is pretty cool. And it works. The only problem with setting up mesh networks anymore is that there's nothing to set up. Once you get the initial router set up, the base station, that's the one you're going to connect to the ISP, you just start plugging the other ones in and they pretty much just go. You have to recognize them somehow. So with my Eros, I actually have an app. Each little base station fires up its own little SSID just for a moment so the app can find it. The app finds it, configures the individual satellites to your SSID, and that's it. There's literally nothing else to do. It's incredibly impressive. Have I ever tried black wine from Paris, from France, south? No. And I really am network mage. I'm a huge fan of French wine, and that's surprising that there's something I don't know of. Carter G. Brown, what are some good avenues in the IT world with music production? I specifically work as a film score composer. What music-related IT careers have you heard of? Oh, Al Mulford's here. Hey, Al. I haven't. To be honest with you, sorry, Carter. And what I'll tell you is this. I am unaware of anybody out there in any form of creative production who isn't using PCs, Ethernet connections, the whole shebang. So to me, you would want to hook up with either people who are selling all of there's so many devices. Probably Dave Rush might have a little more insight on this, or maybe Michael Spire, but all these amazing pieces of hardware that require technicians to understand and configure and get it up and running. Individual recording studios probably need tech guys, stuff like that. So it's not so much looking for the career, in my opinion. I guess it is looking for the career, but you're going to be starting out by, going to the music scene, You don't have to go someplace special, or get online, see what they're selling out there. I don't even know the right words to use. I'm not a music person, equalizers, wireless microphones, or whatever it might be, and see what they're looking for. That's about all the answer I got for you, though. Sorry, man. But Carter, I will tell you this. There's plenty of work out there. You're just going to have to find it. Andre, you got the printer. All right. It made the stripes. I replaced the toner cartridges, and the problem was almost solved. Still some lines, but it's getting less and less. That's definitely going to happen. All of your pickup rollers and everything past the toners have been indented with that line, and you're just going to have to run 15, 20 pieces of paper. If you want to save paper, take the same 20 pieces, run them, flip them, run them again, flip them over, run them again. But yeah, well, the other thing you can do is you can clean it. Andre, it's a laser printer and it's a color laser, so that definitely means that there are cleaning kits supported with this. You just go into Google, type in the model number, type in cleaning kit, and I will bet you they'll sell you one if you want. You don't want to go into printers and start trying to clean stuff without knowing where you're going, because you can really pooch things. Number one, that primary corona, most of them today are pretty well secured, but as soon as I say that, there's going to be one out there that isn't. And by the way, since that's a color laser, you have at least 3 primary coronas, and those suckers will knock you on your rear end if you hit them wrong. And again, they're theoretically well covered, well protected, but why find out the hard way? And by the way, unplugging them doesn't help. They've got capacitors in there that unless they've got a special discharge circuit and you have a grounded plug, they hold that charge for a while. So you got to be careful with that. About the only thing I would do to a printer without having the maintenance kit and the proper tools and some directions from the manufacturer, which you can get online, is I'll take isopropyl alcohol, and I don't mind wiping down any of the black pickup rollers. But that's about it. Other than that, I'm just too paranoid, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to say, get the information. Go online, get the maintenance information from the manufacturer, and get that online. You can probably get the proper tools for it from the same source, although you can probably get them cheaper on eBay. And you also want to take a look at maintenance kits, especially for a bigger laser printer like that. About once a year, they'll ship you a maintenance kit. Think about it like an automobile where you have your 15,000, 30,000, 45,000 services. After a certain number of prints, they'll have you replace rollers and sometimes an ozone filter. It really depends on the make and model of it. Because I'm assuming, Andre, you paid a pretty penny for a color laser printer. Hey, Peter Hunt, there's somebody I haven't seen for a while. You only paid 75 euros for it? I got to look this up. Okay, so here in the States, the cheapest one I can find is $550. So I'm assuming you're talking about the money for the toner cartridge? Okay. Thomas Robinson. Hey, Mike. Nigel, are you still cooking a lot? You mentioned you did in one of your AMAs. I know for me, apart from IET, I learned how to become a really good cook during the pandemic. Nigel, I've been a cook for a long, long time. The problem is the food I make is incredibly bad for you. I can make you a lasagna that will make you cry. Does anybody like pierogi? It's a wonderful Polish dish. I can make great pierogi. I can make any kind of Chinese food, the Americanized versions of that, wontons, pot stickers, all kinds of stuff. I make all kinds of stuff, except now it's really, really bad for me. So in order to help me lose weight, I've hired this nutritionist. And all I eat is whatever, she sends me a little package about this big for every day. So I get about 3 or 4 of these every day, and that's all I eat. I know it's really boring. What I have been getting into is hot sauces. I've actually started to make my own hot sauces. Problem with so many hot sauces today, Nigel, is that they're so full of salt. And I'm trying to avoid salt. So I'm trying to make these salt-free or very, very low salt hot sauces. I've made a couple of good ones. Made a couple of bad ones too. Greg Davis, I have the Netgear Orbi Mesh. Never played with it, but I'm aware of it. Wi-Fi 5 works, but I want their new Wi-Fi 6 model. I'm not dropping $1,000 to swap it out. Yeah, that is the downside to the meshes, is especially if you start adding satellites to them, is that they can get spendy. My Eero with 2 base stations costs $450. It's probably come down from there. Thomas Robinson, Mike, do you know about CPU error codes? Yes. I love questions like that, Thomas. It's like, what about CPU error codes? Are we talking about post-error codes? I'm hoping that's what you mean, because I know of them. I'm going to gamble that that's what you're talking about. So, during the boot process, all computers go through what's known as the power on self-test or post. The post is broken into 2 pieces. There's the part before the monitor comes up, and then there's the part after the monitor comes up. So before the monitor comes up, how does the computer tell you something's wrong? Well, the main way it does it is through what are known as beep codes. And really, there's only one beep code left anymore. And it goes, you ready? Beep, 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 beep. And that means I can't find my RAM, or the RAM is screwed up or something like that. And it's kind of universal. If you went back 15 years ago, you would have different beep codes based on the manufacturer and stuff, but those days are over. No, did I lie? I did lie. Beep, 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 beep means I can't find a keyboard. There is one other beep that comes on during the boot process, but it's really not a post beep code. You'll hear it go beep, 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 real steady beep like that. That means there's something wrong with the RAM. Of course, if a computer boots up properly, you usually get a single chirp. I guess there's a few systems out there that still do a double chirp. Once it's gone through the power on self-test, everything's good. But we're not talking about that one. Once you get to where the monitor is involved, shoot, God bless it, Scott Jernigan is correcting me, and he's absolutely right. The long, short beep, 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 means missing video, not keyboard. Scott Jernigan, you're right. So when you hear beep, 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 that means I can't find a video output. Can't find a video card. Thank you, Scott, keeping me honest. So the challenge we run into with power on self-test is that you would need a postcard. So it's just a little device. Bring up. I'm just trying to go. Oh God, that is a terrible picture. Just trying to find one that looks halfway decent. Bear with me, guys. Why is it so hard to find a good picture of a postcard, for crying out loud? All right, here's just one quickie one that I can pull up for you real quick. So that's an old, this is actually an old PCI postcard, but it still works. So this is a postcard. Power on self-test or postcards are one of these things, people are like, I always love people like, Mike, what tools should I buy as a new tech? Well, the only tool you need is a number 2 Phillips screwdriver, honestly. But people want to buy stuff like this. If you want to buy a postcard, go get one. Make sure it's PCIe so you can plug it in to your system. And also, don't spend more than $75 would be like the maximum. There are companies out there that will sell you like a postcard and these bogus booklet of CPU error codes that no longer even come into play. Post error codes, they don't even work. They're a complete ripoff. So a basic postcard should be no more than $75. You probably get it for half of that Let me see what kind of prices. Oh, look at that. Here we go. I'm just scrolling through. I'm just doing Google shopping. 15 bucks, 25 bucks. I don't know if these are any good. I'm just looking at prices real quick. So that's what a postcard is. Now, if you look at this postcard one more time, you're going to see up here, it's got this 2-digit readout. So that's a hexadecimal readout. So the goal of this readout is during the boot up process, as the post is kicking in, it's simply intercepting the post commands. And it comes out like C6, AA, da-da, whatever. Back in the old days, you used to be able to read those numbers and get good answers, but now they're pretty arbitrary. But there are some good things that happen. When a post is finished, okay, all of them are either going to go to 00 or FF. If you see a postcard and you're booting up a system, you get 00 or FF, you know the post was successful, okay? And the system's probably booting up and going into Windows. But if you don't see that, you might have a problem. Unfortunately, there is no source anymore that I'm aware of that you can count on to reliably look at these things. There's certain codes that still pop up from time to time, like C6 tends to be a memory error, but even that I can't guarantee. All I know is this: if I'm going to use a postcard, well, first off, the reason you're using a postcard is because you're trying to boot up a system and it ain't lighting up. I mean, maybe there's a light on the motherboard that's coming on. Maybe the hard drives are starting to spin. Oh, am I old saying that? But it's just sitting there. You got nothing. The screen's blank. It ain't beeping. There's nothing. Just bricked system as far as you can tell. That's why we use postcards more than anything else. If I snap in a postcard, okay, and the system looks dead, but I snap in the postcard, I boot it up, and I'm seeing numbers change, what's telling me there is that I at least have a live system, that I probably have something basic wrong. Maybe the RAM's installed improperly. Maybe the CPU's not snapped in all the way. It could be something very simple like that. If I fire up a system with a postcard in it and I get nothing, I'm probably going to throw the motherboard away. I've blown some capacitors. Somebody stepped on it. You spilled Diet Coke on it, something like that. But that's about the only time. I use my postcard once a year, once every 2 years. That's about it. I just don't need it very often. You asked for an answer. Is divide by zero a CPU error? No, it's usually a programming error that you're trying to get the CPU to do something it hates doing. I would love to see where that error would be coming from. Thomas, you got to remember, a postcard is not going to help you if a system's up and running. So if you've got a system that's up and running, you're in Windows, and then you get this divide by zero error, postcard's not going to help. The power on self-test only takes place at the initial boot. If you're telling me that you're getting something up on the screen that says divide by zero error, I would be just doing research on that motherboard more than anything else. And just type in the model of the motherboard, divide by zero, hit enter, and see what comes up. Okay. Trying to get back to where all the questions are. Ahmed. Hey, Ahmed. Andre, you bought the whole printer, which is $500 new in the United States for 75 euros, so that'd be about 85, 90 bucks. I got to tell you, there is one great thing about being a hardware tech is that people throw away a lot of good equipment. One of my famous stories is many, many years ago is I had a bunch of monitors that this guy was getting rid of because they were dead, and he wanted some ridiculously low price. So I bought all the monitors, and turned up the brightness knob on half of them and they were working perfectly. Peter Hunt, after I get your full Network Plus, would you recommend me getting any other hardware besides using multiple VMs in VirtualBox? Yeah, I mean, Peter Hunt, if you could get a, most of the time home routers can do a pretty good job. It depends on the home router. If you could get some kind of managed switch so you could play with VLANs, but not much more than that, to be honest with you. People spend way too much money on stuff when they're in training, thinking they need all this equipment. You don't. Network May, how do you like Proton's VPN service? I don't use it. I don't have much use for VPN these days. Honest to Pete, I think I used a Norton VPN last time I actually needed one. Look, I'm not doing so much nefarious stuff that I'm always VPNing, or at least doing reverse VPN, which is what I think you're talking. Well, if you're talking a Proton VPN service, and I know you are, I just don't do it. There's not much call for it. There's a couple of, darknet places I'll sneak into from time to time, but, So usually what that means is that on that rare occasion when I do need it, I'm going to go find something to play with, If I'm in a hurry, I'll probably just use Tor. Brendan S. Are hashes always a fixed length of characters, or are they as long as the password length? So hashes have nothing to do with passwords, Peter, different animal, okay? So there's lots of different kinds of hashes, but each different kind of hash is always going to have the same length. I'm trying to find something online. Give me a sec here. All right, here's one. I'm just picking an arbitrary spot here. Blip, blip, blip. So check this out. So this is just one website I stumbled into. Sortum.org/hash generator. I can make no guarantee this is good or bad. So anyway, type in Fred, generate a hash. Oh, there it is. MD5 hash right there. So I forget how long an MD5 hash is. But, I could do something like this. Just grab some arbitrary text, copy, paste that in there, MD5 hash. Now, it's going to be a different number here, okay? But it's going to be the same length. There you go. So that's just one. It looks like I can make all kinds of different hashes here. In fact, let's do that. Let's do a good old SHA-256. Always a classic. Paste the same value in there again. Now, watch that number. Let me scroll back down so you can see it. So watch this number when I hit generate hash. Oops, I'm going to have to scroll down. All right, so you can see this is much longer. It's a SHA-256. It's a 256-bit hash. So it's going to be different. But I can type in, let me see how long it is. It goes all the way to here. So I'm going to generate another one. And you see it's obviously very different from what we just saw, but it's the same length. So that's an important part of any time we do a hash. So a hash is always going to be the exact same length. So you can just see with the example I used there, a SHA-256 hash is always going to be 256 bits. Whether I typed in those 3 paragraphs of text or whether I just typed in the word Timmy, they always come out the same length. How's that for an answer? Did I get it for you? So I think what you might be talking about is that, so hashes have nothing to do with passwords unless one popular way to store passwords is to not actually store the password itself, but the hash of the password. Because you can't reverse it. You can't look at that piece of text and go back and figure out it was Timmy. It's a one-way thing. There's no decrypting of a hash. That doesn't make any sense. So in order to verify that a password's right, somebody's going to say, give me the password, and then on your end, you probably type in the password, but you hit enter, it sends the hash of the password in the clear, and it compares that to the stored hash. You do a hash-to-hash comparison. That's always the problem with shorter hashes like MD5, is because we do, there are guys who just sit there and take every known word there is and generate the hash for it. And they store these massive hash tables. And they're pretty fast tables. So if you're lucky, and they're going to type in Timmy, Timmy1, Timmy12, Timmy123, Timmy1234, Timmy1, you know, all these different variations. And you would think, well, Mike, that's still a lot of different variations. It's not as many as you'd think. And a lot of times people hack it. So this is always one of the big things people always say, put in long passwords. It's not because, well, long passwords are generally harder to crack, but the hash is always going to be the same. And that's because, you know, so 2 to the 256 power, I don't want to calculate, it's massive, massive number. It's outside of computational possibility. So to crack a SHA-256 password, they're gambling that you're using a shorter password. Yeah, maybe you put an exclamation point on the end or something like that. They know how to crack that stuff. And, oh, hello, Spewy. And so that's what they're trying to do. So long passwords, these people who've generated, you know, trillions of hashes, these massive hash tables, databases, they don't have that big long password in there. No one's bothered to calculate it yet. So, but remember, hashes are used for all kinds of stuff. I mean, every TLS handshake has a number of hashes in there that have nothing to do with a password. It's just a handy way to send nonces or whatever it might be. So, or if you use hashes, you want to verify that a certificate is the same certificate that somebody sent, you can take a certificate. And remember, a certificate's just a string of ones and zeros, so it can be hashed like anything else. So you'll hash the certificate itself to verify that the certificate's good. You know, little things like that. So hashes don't mean passwords. Hashes are used all over the place. One popular place, and certainly if you're taking Security Plus, and you want to be aware of, is that storing password hashes is a very, very common thing. Looking for the next one, guys. So be careful. If you're asking me a question, if I see an @ sign and you're talking to somebody else, I scroll right past those because you're talking to somebody else. Hey, Azad's, he's back. Mike, I upgraded from Core 2 Quad Core to Xeon Quad today. How did you do that? You upgraded your motherboard. I'm aware of anybody going from Core 2 Quad Core to Xeon Quad. If it's a Xeon Quad, it's an older Xeon. You got a new motherboard, as odds. You have to have. Both of my systems are going really slow, hanging, Nintendo Xperia. My first quick guess, if you've got an old Core 2 system where you're running 32-bit Windows, Xeons are terrible at running 32-bit, and they slow down like crazy. I mean, that'd be the first thing I'd check. Yeah, Tolowit, firmware updates are always a good idea. Dave Rush, I'm assuming you got that CD command handled there, brother. Ahmed, hi Mike, hi Ahmed. Dave, you gonna leave anything for the old man here, brother? Kavos Films. What do you have to do to study for the CompTIA A+, I'm assuming you meaning. Kavos, you came to the right place, all right? First of all, you don't have to study at all. There is no study requirements. There's no experience requirements. Anybody can walk up to a Prometric testing center or even online now, pay $400 or whatever it is, and go take the test. So nobody can tell you what you have to do. I can give you my recommendation, and you might want to consider that. Usually what you want to do to pass a CompTIA, and to be honest with you, This is true for almost any IT certification. All right, don't go thinking that this is just for CompTIA Plus. There's over 800 different IT certifications out there, just to give you an idea. So normally what you have to do is you have to get some kind of study materials. I believe that videos, that a book, and practice tests are the three things that most people need in order to successfully pass any certification, and certainly the CompTIA A+. I am one of many people who sell training materials for you to practice on and learn on before you sit down to take the CompTIA A+ exam. I've been at it a long time. I've had great success. I think I do a good job, and I would like you to seriously recommend my products. And, oh, speaking of products, you lucky guy, I was going to say this is just for Kevos, but it's for everybody. Just because you are kind enough to show up today for the Total Seminars Mike Meyers Ask Me Anything, this week we're offering 50% off our A+, Net Plus, and Security Plus super bundles. That's the videos, the simulations. The tester does not include a book. Also, if you just want practice questions, any kind of practice questions, those are all 50% off. Just go to www.totalsem.com. I know Scott Jernigan will be typing this in. Pick what you want and then type in Live 626 at checkout and you get 50% off. This is ridiculously cheap prices, and please take advantage of that. So now you have the right products. The first thing you have to do, Kevos, is you have to decide when are you going to take the examination. And remember, if it's A+, there are two examinations. There's the 220-1001 and the 220-1002. So you will have to take two examinations. Most people like to take the 220-1001 first, okay? All my study materials are broken up between the two exams if you like that, which is nothing wrong with that. So it takes the average person about 120 hours of study to be ready for both exams combined, okay? So let's call it 60 hours and 60 hours. But that depends on your skill. Kevos, if you're a very skilled technician, it might only take you 20 hours per exam. If you're inexperienced, it might take you over 100 hours of study for each examination. So you have to sit here and say to yourself, if I study 5 hours a week, or if I can study 15 hours a week, how many weeks will that take me? And do the mathematics, okay? And go ahead and pay the money for your examination. The reason I tell people to pay the money for their examination is because for many people, if they don't do that, they'll delay and they'll put it off. And I can't tell you, these CompTIA exams are updated every 3 years. And I can't tell you how many times I've had so many people go, oh, well, back when it was the 901 and 902, the previous version, I took the 901, but I never got around to the 902. Well, tough. Now you got to do both over again. So I'm always a big believer in scheduling yourself for the exams. Figure out the amount of time you need, schedule for the exams, and begin studying. Most people like to read a book, then watch a video, and then do practice questions. Some people enjoy watching videos. Some people like to read an entire book, then go back and use videos on a chapter-by-chapter basis. If you decide to use my study materials, my videos and my book pretty much match perfectly chapter by chapter. There's some differences, but nothing major. And then you use practice questions to make sure you understand everything. Some people do practice questions on a chapter-by-chapter basis. My practice questions allow you to do that. Some people like to save the practice questions until they feel that they're done studying and they spend 2 weeks doing nothing but practice questions. That's fine too. I'm assuming that you have studied in school and use those tools to get you where you want to go. So how's that for a beginning answer at least? Terrence Tech, how many test questions in total is your... How many test questions? I don't remember. Many hundreds. That I can tell you. It's over 1,000 on the Security Plus? Goodness sake, Scott. Thomas Robinson, are password generator apps safe to use? Yes, but the problem is the moment you use a password generator app, let's just say you go to somebody else's system and you want to just log into something, odds are good you won't remember the password. Instead, I recommend using very, very complicated passwords based on phrases. And then you do something about the website. I almost don't want to tell you because it would give away some of my secret clues. You know, all websites have something unique about them. Now we're just talking about website password generators here, okay? And, you know, pick something that helps you make it unique and, you know, add that. Don't change the first letter of the password. Let's just say that your password is I love pizza. That's your password for everything. I love pizza. But I like to change my passwords. Why is my nose driving me crazy? I'm so sorry, guys. It doesn't itch when I'm not online. I swear. I think I might be allergic to this camera or something. So anyway, you use, I'm going to go with something simple. Don't do this because everybody does this. So you have I love pizza. So when you go to a www.mmicrosoft.com, then you type in M, I love pizza. And then when you go to www.totalsem.com, you type in T, I love pizza. Get the idea? Make it more complicated than that. But, you know, I'm not against password generators except for the fact that the moment I walk away from my computers, I get in trouble. Yeah, there are built-in password generators like Firefox has a wonderful password generator, but if I go up to somebody else's machine and I need to log on to one of my accounts, I'm going to have to download Firefox if they don't have it. I'm going to have to log into Firefox with my account, and then the built-in password generator will work. But they're all pretty safe. RoboForm has been around like for 20 years, and it's still great. Dr. Quinn, he loves pierogi. So really, when I lose a bunch, like when I get under 200 pounds, I know what I'm going to get. I'm going to get a real Philadelphia cheesesteak. And that means I probably need to go to Philadelphia. And I mean a real cheesesteak, you know, with the white American cheese and the peppers. And I want a big one too, you know. Philly cheesesteak, regular old plain pierogi, cheese pierogi, sour cream. And I don't even care what I drink a Diet Coke. Man, I tell you, you guys, you European folks, you want to eat American food? You wonder why all Americans are fat? Wait till you see a big old Philly cheesesteak, cheese pierogi, and sour cream. Okay, we're back. You want my pierogi recipe? That would take a while. Tahir Jaled, any giveaways today? Yeah, I'll tell you what. It's Friday. Sure, we'll have some giveaways, but after we do NTFS. What do I think of the Cisco CyberOps certification? It's pretty good. I'm hearing noise on it. What if you can't afford this exam for the time being? Okay. Well, there's a lot of things you can do, Nigel, to save money. First off, one of the things you can do is that Cisco offers a education to school discount for the certification. This can be a very, very deep discount, but it has to be done through a school. Nobody online can do this for you. So if you have a school that's teaching A+, you might be able to sweet talk them into it, something like that. So that would be one thing. You know, the other thing is that certifications cost money, Nigel. It's, you know, there ain't no free lunch. And, you know, stick around here. I'll give you free training materials eventually if you get some questions right. Kavos, does the CompTIA A+ questions always update after you fail for the first test? Kavos, I think I know what you're asking me. The questions do change. So if you sit down to take an A+ exam, you will get a 90 questions out of a pool of what feels to be about 600 questions is our best guess. And if you were to sit and take it again, you would get subtle differences. Although it's surprising, we've seen where people take a test and sit down and everybody sits down at the same time and they get about the same exam. The one big thing that they do is CompTIA is very big on changing the exam based on geography. So on a given day, if you take a test in the United States and you take a test in the UK, you see very different piles of questions from different pools. I don't know why they do that. And again, this is just what I sense. I can't prove this, but we're pretty sure that that's the kind of stuff that happens. So yes, if you fail the exam and come back later, you will get slightly, if not dramatically different questions. Jacopo, I have to just buy your Security Plus book, Mike. Okay. So Jacopo, are you in the United States? Ugh. I'm so sorry about my nose, guys. I don't know what's going on. It's craziness. All right. Wow, we're almost an hour in. So what we're going to do now is I want to talk about network shares and NTFS permissions a little bit. We'll get a good start on this. I wish I remember who'd asked that question. I need to start writing down who asked the question. But let's talk about this for a little bit, okay? So what I want to do is start off with a quick little graphic. So let's take a look at this situation we have right here. So I've got two computers. Here's one computer, here's another computer. Now these computers are on a work group. There's no domain control or anything. So it's like just two Windows 10 Pro systems or a Windows 10 Home and a Windows 10 Pro. It doesn't matter. What's important is that there's no domain controller. So this computer over here, we're going to call this one computer 1. He's got a share on his desktop, say, and he wants to share this. So this folder has a name, and we'll call the folder Bob, okay? And so what we're going to do here is we want to share that. Now, the problem that you run into with shares in Windows is that you have two very, very different technologies that are working at the same time. First of all, you have the old net bias, as we call it, network shares, okay? And when you create a share, what you're doing is you're sharing it on the network. You got to be really careful about this. NTFS has permissions, and we're going to look at those in a minute. But when you talk about NTFS permissions, imagine a world where there are no computers on Earth other than this one computer, okay? So you apply NTFS permissions to a local user account on that computer. When you're making users, when you log into Windows, what you're logging into, unless you're on a domain, you're logging into a local user account, okay? And it's a database of usernames and passwords that are stored on this computer. You can log off of that computer and somebody else can log on to the same computer. There is no network, okay? Somebody else can log on to that same computer with a different username and password, and NTFS works beautifully. It's really important to me that you understand that. NTFS doesn't care if you are accessing a system from the keyboard or from Japan. It doesn't care. As long as you type in an acceptable username and password that's in its database, the network share lets you in, and then it's the NTFS permissions that actually decide what you can do, okay? This is where we get into the idea of authorization versus authentication. Authentication is where you type in a username and password to get you into a system. That's authorization. Am I getting this backwards? Why do I always get this backwards? Scott Jernigan, save me. I've just gone blank. Scott's typing. He's going to save me. I forgot which one's which. No, I got authentication is when you get into the system, and then authorization, thank you, Scott, and then authorization is what allows you, determines what you can do. God, sorry about that, guys. Did a lot of drugs in the 60s. Yeah, all right, so one more time. Authentication is when you type in like your username and password. That gets you into the system. And then authorization decides what you can do. So your system allows you to log in, and then it's your NTFS permissions that decide what you can do. Can you see the folder? Can you save a file? Can you read a file? Can you execute a file? That kind of a thing. This is really important, okay? So let's keep these ideas separate. So let's go ahead and talk about NTFS permissions a little bit on a single system. All right. Let's get something fun up here to play with. Close all this junk. All right. All right, so what I got, of course I'm going to have to scroll in so you guys can see this. Did I scroll out? It's supposed to be zooming into this thing. Oh, I am zooming out. Sorry. Just want to make this folder real big so you guys can see it. This is surprisingly hard for me to do. Let's make it just a little bit bigger. All right, that should be big enough. Okay, so here's a folder that I have on my desktop. Now, what I want to do is I want other users to be able to access this guy. So if I right-click on it, you'll notice what it says is I can say give access to. So I want you to ignore the home groups because as soon as I upgrade this Windows system, those are going to disappear. I'm running 1909 version of Windows 10. So what I can do is I can click on specific people, and then I get this window to come up. Now right now I only have one user on this system, which is called Mike. So what I'm going to do, bear with me, I'll bring this into the window in just a second. I'm going to go into settings, and I'm going to go onto accounts. There. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another account. So right now, this is the only account I have, okay? I don't want to zoom it back out because I'm going to zoom right back in. So here it's called Family and Other Users. Add someone else to this PC. Now Microsoft really wants you to make a Microsoft account. I don't like those. The reason I'm against Microsoft accounts is that if you ever forget the password or something like that on a Microsoft account, you better hope that you're on the internet, and you better hope that Microsoft account recovery is working and that you can get to an email and blah, blah, blah. It's terrible. I've had situations where I've ended up wiping a system because I forgot a password, and because I used a Microsoft account for that password, I couldn't get to the system. So I like to just create local user accounts. Kind of old-fashioned, but it works. All right. So I'm going to say I don't have this person's sign-in information. And then right here, it says add a user without a Microsoft account. And I'm going to call this guy Timmy. I'm going to give it a password of Timmy. It's a terrible password, but I'm going to do it. And in case I forget the password, what's your pet's first name? Bob. Security question 2. Name your first city you're in. Bob. I don't like these things. What was my childhood nickname? Guess what? Bob. And I'm going to hit next. You can't see it, but it's just below there. All right, so what I've done is I've just created an account called Timmy. So you have different levels of accounts on a Windows system. You're going to have an administrator account. Now, there is an administrator account by default called administrator. that account is disabled by default. I'll show you in a minute where we can turn that back on in just a sec. Let me check for questions real quick. How are we doing? No questions? All right, let me keep going then. All right, so, oh wait, we were talking about that. All right, so you have the administrator account. So what you really have, folks, is a group called local administrators. And whenever you create an administrator account, all you're doing is you're putting them in there. So when you initially set up a Windows system, that first account you make is an administrator account. And by default, it has full administrator rights. This is the only way you want to reformat the hard drive. With an administrator account, you can. Any other accounts you make from here on in are going to be, I think they're just called user accounts. They're part of the user group. But now I have that Timmy. So what I'm going to do now is let me minimize this. Go back here. So now I'm going to right click on this. I'm going to go to give access to. I'm going to say specific people. All right, what we're going to do is hit this pull down, and it says Timmy. Oh, shoot, I could have created a new user right there. Doggone it. Oh, well. So now I can give Timmy access to that. Now, let me go ahead and add him. And you can see that he has read permission. We have read, read write, and then remove. And I'm going to just go ahead and share that. So my folder is shared. Yay! It's really important to me that you understand that I've created another local user account on this system called Timmy. And Timmy has the password of, what did I call it? Timmy? Timmy with the password of Timmy. If NTFS and Windows doesn't care whether I'm logging onto this machine locally, you know, log off of Mike or switch accounts, go to Timmy, I can have access to it. Equally, I could be on the other side of the network. I would access this system through my network, click on the name of this computer, and I'd see it. And the moment I clicked on it, it would pop up a little thing that says, enter your username and password. I'd type in Timmy, boom, I'm on. Now, people look at me a lot. They go, Mike, I've done this, and I didn't have to type in a username and password. And that's because most people, especially in a home network, you set up all the systems the same. So here, take a look at this guy one more time. So as you look at this, I have a user on this machine called Mike with a password of Timmy, and I have a user on this machine with a password of Timmy. When that happens, the moment you go onto your network, all right, you see these other network computers and you click on them, they send those credentials along with it. So you've logged into this first machine as Timmy with the password of Timmy, or Mike with the password of Timmy like I did in the PowerPoint. It just goes along with it. So this is a very common thing that people do on Windows work groups, which is most people's small networks. If you don't have a domain controller, you have a work group. So what people end up doing to make their lives easier is they put the same local user accounts on all their computers. Does that sound like a secure thing? Yeah. It beats all my friends asking me how to log into a computer. It's actually done pretty commonly where you have individual local user accounts that are identical. Same account, same password on all your individual machines. So you don't have to go through the hassle of every time you click on it, having to type in Mike with the password of Timmy or whatever the example is. Does that make sense to you? This is really, really important. Okay. You know what? I'm going to keep going on this because I'm, well, first of all, I'm not getting any questions, which makes me nervous. So either one, what I'm saying is incredibly interesting and you guys want more, or I'm boring you to death. In fact, type in one way or the other, guys. If you like this, I'll keep going. If you don't like it, I'll quit. Type something in. I'm watching the live chat. I'm waiting for you guys to type something, otherwise I'm going to quit. All right, I've got a quorum. Thomas Robinson says passwords, but I'm not sure what that means. Cyber Talon, you are a captive audience, but you are my captives. Sorry, let's get back to it. All right. So that's really important. So NTFS works beautifully on just a single system. You don't need a network for NTFS to work. With that attitude in mind, let's move. This is what scares me about Windows, especially Windows 10. Microsoft and CompTIA really need to think about how they teach this stuff. Like, for example, the changes in the interfaces on creating users, setting NTFS permissions, all this stuff has changed so dramatically in different versions of Windows 10, say nothing about Windows 7, 8, and 8.1, that from an instructional standpoint, this can be very, very challenging. And from a user standpoint, I don't even remember the differences sometimes. So I'm fearless, I don't care, I'm going to poke around. But what I want to do is I'm going to head over and I'm going to go into computer management. Let me make sure you guys can see this. All right, so this is computer management. I got to that through the, you can get to it from the control panel still, or you can just right click on your taskbar and hit, it's right there as an option called computer management. Anyway, in here is something called local users and groups. When I'm creating users and groups, I rarely use the stupid interfaces that Windows provides. And I rarely use that thing in settings that I just did. Usually I just go straight to local users and groups, and I do all of this here. What local users and groups does that's very, very convenient is not only can I create users, but I can also create groups. Now, yeah, people don't make groups a lot. Most of the time, as long as you got 1 or 2 administrator accounts and you have everybody else is just a regular user, life is good. But sometimes you need more, and this is where you can do it. This works perfectly fine on a regular work group, just 2 Windows 10 professional systems. All right, let's get back in here. All right, so I can come in here, and by the way, local users and groups has been around forever. So if you take a look in here, here are the groups that have already been there. A couple of these you should recognize. There's Mike and Timmy, okay? Here's the actual administrator account. If you look really close, you can see there's a down arrow because it's disabled. You want to turn it on? Right there. And I can turn it on. User cannot change password. Password never expires. I'm just going to leave that there, and I'm going to hit apply. I've got an error and I can't show it to you. Oh wait, here it goes. Following error occurred while attempting to save properties for you is disabled as it could result in administrator account being disabled, deleted, or okay. I think I know what I did wrong. There we go. There was no password, and I hit the checkbox that said user cannot change password. So my Windows is like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm not going to let you activate the administrator account without the ability to put a password on it, because by default it doesn't have a password. Oops. Okay. All right, so I got the administrator account lit back up. And interestingly enough, right now it doesn't have a password, although I would probably put one on. Guest is kind of a joke. Guest was originally used, for example, things like if I installed a web server on this system, pretty sure I would need to turn on guest, or I'd have to set up the web server software to accept anybody coming in from the network. But the guest one used to be used for all kinds of stuff. It used to use like for people accessing printers and stuff like that. It was a big weak spot security-wise. They keep it in there because a lot of people still need to use it for one thing or another. But they keep it turned off. Let's see what else we got in here. This one I don't even recognize. Is there any property? Someone give me some information. Oh, okay. So this account's actually used by my firewall. Currently disabled, but okay. And then the last one that's kind of interesting. This is the default account. Basically what this is the account that the system uses for whatever it might need to do. Take a look at that. Okay. Anyway, let's go down to groups. Wow, look at all these groups these are what are known as built-in groups. So there better be administrators. There we go. There's administrators, okay? And then there's just straight up users, okay? So let's open up users. And we can see Timmy's in there because we created something like that while we're in here. So what's happening here is these are some kind of strange user groups that are not recognized by the system right now. They're okay that they're in there. They're probably used for like backup software or something like that. You don't want to delete them. You want to leave them in there. All right, but the other thing we could do with groups is we can do something kind of cool like this. Let's make a new group. Colleges, I can make a description in here. I can add users. Now this is the ancient user thing, so there's no way to actually see what users are. You just have to know them. I can check that name, and you'll see that it comes up with a UNC format. See the backslash? And the name of this computer is called Mike Studio, and that is the user. So I've done that. So I've added Timmy to it. And you'll see when I hit create, it stays here. It's used to people asking to make lots and lots of accounts at once. So let's go ahead and close that. All right. So what we've done here is we've created a user called Timmy, and we've put him in a group called, what did I call it? Sales? Okay. So when you're working with NTFS, you rarely want to give permissions to users. It just gets messy. If somebody quits, if you get divorced, you know, whatever it is, it creates problems. So what we tend to do is we create groups, we apply NTFS permissions to the group, and then you put users in them. That way if somebody quits or moves away or whatever it is, you're not having to go through their account and rip everything out. You got to keep in mind, you apply NTFS permissions like to one folder, and they're the only one that has permissions to that folder, and they go away or they forget their password, you can't get to the folder. The only thing you can do is log in as the administrator, and then you do something called take ownership, and that person loses all their permissions. So when you're dealing with this stuff, you tend to make a folder, you tend to make a group, then you apply NTFS permissions to the group, all right? The other thing about NTFS is you can apply NTFS permissions to files, but that's usually pretty rarely done. Most of the time, that file is going to be in a folder, and that's where you want to apply the permissions most of the time. There are a few situations where you might want to apply NTFS permissions directly to a file, but most of the time, you apply those permissions to the folder that it's in. All right, so let's get on this. So now we're looking at this folder again. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click on it. Now, I can just give access, but that's boring, right? Did we already give Timmy access? I think we did, didn't we? Yeah, that's boring. Okay, this is how the kids do it. We're cool people. So you go down to properties. So now we look at the properties on here, and what I want you to do is see these things? I just ignore that. Those are just attributes, okay? What we want to take a look at is security. Do you see this sharing? That's just for networking. That sharing tab is just for networking. We're not networking here, folks. I got 2 users on one computer. Ignore that sharing. I know everybody says, oh, it's sharing. I want to share it with Timmy. It's network sharing. We don't play with that on individual systems. Well, Mike, why would anybody want to set up multiple users on one computer? Because believe it or not, folks, most systems out there have to be logged in by multiple people. You got a desktop system at the power plant and first shift, second shift, third shift. You know, you've got different people. You got techs who are logging in. You got users who are logging in. You get the idea? So I know at your house, you're the only person who logs in. You're rare and you're weird, okay? The reality is it's very common to have multiple users on one system, and Windows with NTFS is designed to do this from the ground up. It's good stuff. All right, so what we're going to do here is let's get out of sharing and go over to security. Here is what you're looking at right now are the default NTFS permissions for this folder. You got it? Now, if you look really close, these are kind of grayed out. The reason they're grayed out is because that folder called PowerPoints is in a folder called Desktop, which is in a folder called Mike, which is in a folder called Users, which is on a volume called C drive. So when you see it grayed out, what that's telling you is that somewhere up the tree, these permissions have been applied. This is called inheritance. If you make a folder, that folder is going to get all of the permissions from the folder that was in automatically. And when you go into these settings and you see them grayed out, it's just telling you because somewhere up the tree, those permissions have been applied. And yes, if I really wanted to, I could open up File Manager right now and go up to C:\users\Mike\desktop. I could right click on there. If it's all grayed out, then I go to C:\users\Mike. I'd right click on there. So I'll see what I'm doing. Eventually I'd get to a point where they're not grayed out. Okay? Don't let inheritance fool you. And for the record, those are questions you're going to see on both the A+ and Net+ on NTFS. What is inheritance? Don't make it hard, folks. All it means is that whatever permissions were in the folder that it came from, that's what you're going to get. Also, if you create a file inside a folder, whatever permissions that the folder has are inherited by the file. Got it? Okay, good. Back to it. And what's that called? Inheritance. Inheritance. Like I'm leaving you a big inheritance. All right, so this is, okay, so if you look right here, do you see Timmy? The reason that's there is because we added him a minute ago. Now, if you take a look by default, Timmy only gets 3 permissions. Read and execute, list folder contents, and read. All right, let's talk about these for a minute. All right, let's start with these 3. These are the default 3, and if you take a Security Plus course, you should know these. Number 1, read and execute means you can actually run, like if there's an executable program in there, or if there's a Word document, Word can read it and bring it in, okay? List folder contents means you can see what's in the folder. And people come up to me and they go, why would you have a permission called list folder contents? Well, because in a lot of situations, like you got a big accounts receivable department and you got 400 people all sitting at the computer, they have no business as a user going into these particular folders, but they're running some program and that program needs access. When you log into a computer, my name's Mike, password Timmy. When you access anything anywhere on there, whatever program you're running goes with your credentials. So there could be a big database sitting on a file server someplace and you're running a program on your machine. It's whatever your credentials are that bring it in. They have no business ever seeing what's in there. They have no business even going over there. But the program that they're running, you know, accounts receivable, RS dot whatever, needs to have access to that database. Does that make sense to you? So that's why list folder contents is something you can turn on or off. Read is kind of a weird animal. Read basically means I can see the contents of it, but I can't do anything with it. With read and execute, you can actually read it and look at it. You can execute it, but with read itself, you can't really do much of anything with it, but it's in there by default. Let's talk about the other ones. Write. Write means you can add to this directory. So you can put stuff in there. So if you want to create a new file, you can put it in there. Modify means not only can you read and execute it and look at it, but you can actually change the file. You can type into that Word document and hit save and it'll work. Full control means you can do anything you want. Full control means not only can you do it, you can delete the folder, you can add folders, you can delete the folders, you can delete the files, you can change the files, you can do anything you want. But full control also means something very, very important. Full control also means you can let other people into it. Pretty cool, huh? So what we usually see is that we're usually pretty careful about adding full control. The one place
where all users will have full control is in the C:\users/ whatever their name is folder. Because it's their personal stuff. So they can do whatever they want. And if they want to bring somebody else in, let them. Okay? So, but normally, the only people who have full control across the board are administrators. If you have full control, you can add people. All right? You can't create users. That's an administrator job. But if there is a user there, you can bring them in. You can give them access to your folders. All right. So right now, Timmy just has these. Let's give Timmy everything but full control. Ready? So I'm going to hit Edit. And let's see. So you take, well, let's take a look at Mike for a minute. So if you take a look at Mike right now, you can see we have all these allows, but now we have this thing called deny. Do you see that? This is really important. If you're going to start setting up NTF permissions, and after this, I guarantee you will, because it's actually pretty cool. There are situations where because of inheritance, remember everybody gets all these permissions, but sometimes you say, well, you know what, in this particular case, I want to deny it. So deny stops inheritance. That's all it is. Most people consider the usage of deny shows that you have poorly organized your NTFS permissions. Okay? So you use deny as a last resort kind of a thing. Normally you're just careful about how you set up your inheritance so it's done right. One example that can come into play is that NTFS permissions are combined. Okay? So let's say that Timmy is a member of both the sales group and of the administrators group. Remember, administrators have access to everything. That would mean that Timmy gets full access to everything. So sometimes, especially when people are in multiple groups, you might use a deny from time to time. Nobody's going to test you on how to use deny. It's important that you understand why deny exists. Okay, let's get back to it. All right, so Mike is boring because he's an administrator. So he has, everything's allowed and grayed out because I actually have access to the entire C drive because I'm an administrator. But let's look at Timmy. Okay, so now Timmy doesn't have this. And he shouldn't because we just added him. So he has those 3 default permissions. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow Timmy to make changes. And then write gets updated automatically when you do changes. Special permissions is weird, and for the moment I'm going to ignore that. All right, so now if we take a look at Timmy, he's got everything but full control. Timmy can log into this computer right now, and it'll be his desktop, right? He won't be able to see that. But he can go into the file manager and scroll through the local computer, the C drive, and he can get to PowerPoints, even though it's in the Mike personal folder. Get the idea? And Timmy can do anything he wants except allow other people to get to it, right? So he can do anything he wants. That's NTFS. If I were actually in a position I could do this right now, I would now reboot the computer, log in as Timmy, and show it to you. I ask you to try that on your own, okay? So what I would like you to do, don't do it now, but because you'll have to reboot. I guess you wouldn't have to reboot. You could log in as a different user. Don't do it because it'll close your web browser. Put a folder on a desktop. Make a user called whatever you want. Reboot into that. Give them the NTFS permissions like I just did. Reboot and let them get in there. It's pretty cool. Okie doke. Where are we? There was one more thing I wanted to talk about. I forgot my drink. Oh well, must have been a liar. All right, so let's do this again, except for a minute I want to talk about network sharing, okay? Now remember, NTFS, in order for this to work, you have to have a local user account on this machine. And if you're across the room and you want to get to this machine, you have to have a local user account on this machine. And that's why most people who have work groups, they don't have a domain controller, will go through and put the same users on every machine. I'm not saying it's good security, but most people do it because they don't want their husband or their kids or their buddy who's coming over to play Half-Life to keep asking them the same questions over and over again. It's from laziness. All right, so let's take a look at this PowerPoint. So now what I want to do, if you take a look now, what we've got is we have these two accounts. Here's a user Mike with the password of Timmy, and here's a user Mike, but the password's Fred. So this person logs into this machine over here, and it says Mike with the password Fred. The moment they go over on their file manager and they click on network, and they go over and they can see that, and they click on something, they're going to get a system that says, enter your password, or it'll just say enter your password. And you're like, what? Because you logged in as Mike, and it knows Mike. It's happy with Mike. But you got the wrong password. Because when you logged into that system, you typed in Mike with the password of Fred, and this machine you're trying to get to is Mike with the password of Timmy. Yeah, kind of a mess, huh? Well, that's why domain controllers are so popular today, because they take a lot of this off of our back. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about sharing within a work group, though. Okay, so if we take a look at this guy, and now we're going to come down here. Now what I'm going to do is I want to set this up for sharing over the network. That's where you come to this guy. Got it? All right, so in order to share something, number one, you're going to have to give it a share name. Okay, so it might be a little hard to read. What's happening here is this is automatically giving it. Do you see the whack whack, then Mike Studio, and then whack? Do you see that? Those little backslashes? Man, I hope you guys can read those. Anyway, so that's the UNC, Universal Naming Convention, which is pretty much unique to Windows. And yes, they do backslashes. Pretty much every other operating system uses forward slashes. So it's backslash, backslash, the name of the server, backslash, and then the name of the shared folder. So we're going to go ahead and click on share, okay? And then we're going to say who we're going to share it with. So in this case, we're going to say Timmy. And here's that read, write, remove. So I'm going to say read, write, and I hit OK, I hit share. And now there is a folder out there that Timmy can read. It'll even let you email Timmy and say, hey, Timmy, here's a new shared folder that you have access to. That is a boring way to do it. Cool kids don't use this. What we use is advanced sharing, all right? So we're going to click on share this folder, and now we can give it a name. Instead of just giving it the name of the folder, let's call it Mike's Desktop PP, PowerPoints. This is a network share name. This is not the actual name of the folder. So what's happening here is that when you go into your network, so when Timmy's over at his machine, and he goes into network and he clicks on that Mike Studio, because it'll show up, he's going to see a folder that's not going to say C:\Mike C:\, users /Mike /desktop /PowerPoints. He's just going to see a folder that says, what did I call it? Mike's Desktop PP, okay? There's no reason to tell people what the actual path is, so just type that in, all right? Give it some kind of name. And this is also a lot more handy because when you have all these shares out there, and you got 6 different people with PowerPoint folders because you're working on something together, giving it a more descriptive name because everybody's all over the network can often make people's lives a lot easier. And a lot of times you're in organizations that are actually doing this. They have actually convention that says how you share folders. Okay, limit the number of simultaneous users to 20. Here, let's make it 21. Oh wait, you can't. Windows Professional, Windows Home, Windows Enterprise, the maximum number of computers that can access this system in any way, shape, or form is 20. Microsoft puts that in there because they don't want you putting a file server, a file server, like a big file server that's serving 100 people. They want you to buy server. They want you to spend $2,000 or whatever it is. There's no reason for this to be here other than that Microsoft is a bunch of cheapskates. You could put a web server on here. You could put a public-facing web server on my Windows 10 professional system. but only 20 people can access it at a time. Thanks, Microsoft. All right, let's get back to it. All right, so you can put some comments in there. The comments will actually show up when you're clicking on the share in your network. It'll show up, it'll show the name, and it'll give some commentary. So I'll just type something in there. A lot of people just keep that blank. All right, and then let's click on permissions. This is where things get interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 1988. You are looking at the original network share permissions that were invented with Microsoft LAN Manager back in the late 1980s. You have full control, change, or read only. You can also straight up deny people. I'm going to tell you right now, what everybody does is this, exactly like we have right here. I'm just going to hit apply. But you're like, wait, Mike, wait a minute. But I don't want to give them full control. Yeah, you do. The network share, always give them full control. Always. Always. And use your NTFS permissions for the fine-tuning of things. Okay? And so if you give them full control to that folder, that's great. But that only gets them to the folder, and then NTFS is sitting there at the gate. So you give them full control on that folder, but you give them only read-only permission, they're only going to be able to read only. Got it? So maybe NTFS permissions combine, but network share permissions and NTFS permissions will combine to the lowest common denominator. So look, could you goof with the network share permissions and set that up with the NTFS? Yeah, but you'll be hating yourself. The Microsoft Best Practices says in a workgroup, you will set your network share to full control and then you use NTFS to set the real permissions. If I were to walk up to a system that had a bunch of weird like read-only network shares, I'd be like, you've now going to cost me another $500. Seriously, I wouldn't even, like, I don't want to debug your god-awful permissions setup. So let's remember this. You set the network shares to full control. You use the NTFS permissions to control what they can do, okay? Look, it's bad enough you're still going to have to set on this machine an account for Timmy, right? I mean, you got to do that. You can't get around it. But at least you can have good controls using NTFS. Fair enough? All right. There's not much more to do here. I'll just hit OK, hit close. And now, anytime anybody else is on the network and they go into their network and they click on Mike Studio, they're going to see that share called Mike Desktop PP. And depending on what their permissions are, based on their network share, which is full control, which means anybody can get in. But in terms of their NTFS decides what they can do. Pretty cool, right? All right. So for all of this and all this pain and suffering we've been running through, there's still one big weak spot in all of this. And that is because you're running a work group, you still have to create local user accounts on every individual machine. And kids, this is true for every operating system. You got a bunch of Macs, you're going to have to set up the Macintosh equivalent of local user groups on every Mac. You got a Linux systems, you're going to have to set up local users for every Linux system. Yeah. And that's where Windows domain controllers really save the day. People can cut down Windows 8 ways to Sunday, but man, I got to tell you, there's one thing that Windows domains with Windows domain controllers do better than anybody else, and it's called single sign-on. So instead of having a setup like this, what we do is we bring in a domain controller, all right? Now this is a regular system. I could put this on a laptop if I wanted to, but we usually set it up on a big server because it's serving a bunch of people. And this domain controller, he's going to have what are called domain users. You can still have your local user accounts, but you're going to have domain users. And then when you set up permissions, you don't set up permissions for the local user accounts, you set up permissions for the domain users. And as long as people log into their individual systems under the domain, not their local user account, but their domain account, then you set up permissions based on domains. And unfortunately, because I don't have my domain controller running, I'm going to save that for Monday. So let me get my notation down. Get domain controller running. Get domain. Scott Jernigan, please remind me, because I'm literally, as soon as we're done here, I'm running away. But we're going to get the domain controller up. And what we're going to do on Monday is we're going to demonstrate all this one more time, except with the domain controller, which is where things are really cool. Like, for example, like if you have a Macintosh system, Macintosh has, I think it's called file and print sharing for Windows. Michael Smyer can correct me on that. And anyway, what that is, it's called Samba. And it basically makes your Macintosh look, act, bark, smell, taste like a Windows system. So you can log into domain controllers, you can join work groups, stuff like that. Macs don't have a Macintosh domain. There is no Mac. There's a weird Mac server. Most people will just tell their Macs to log in to a Windows domain controller. Linux has Samba. If you have Linux systems in a larger network, Linux systems can log into a Windows domain controller just like a Windows system. Microsoft owns the single sign-on world. It just straight up owns it. And if you go to University of Houston with their massively parallel processing, 12,000 Linux computers in there, but they all log into a single Windows domain controller because it's just pretty. Single source of login information, one administrator. It's good stuff. All right, I'm going to stop there. Let's take a look at what we have for questions. GB has a question. How tall am I? 5'6". I'm not sure what that is in stone. I'm a funny bagger. Nigel, is that some kind of Australian thing? Mike, how is Sandbox different than virtualizing OS? Sandbox. Azad, I don't know what a sandbox is. Do you mean sandbox? So sandboxing basically is a verb. To sandbox is to emulate a situation so you can play with it. In gaming, we do sandbox servers where the developers are practicing, like their World of Tanks is famous for their sandbox, or sometimes they're called beta servers, but they're sandbox. And where they can experiment with things. You can you can build a Windows system up as a sandbox system to experiment. Let's say you're in-house developing software and you want to play with it to see how it works. We often put sandboxing on virtual machines because it's convenient. I mean, what if you build up a Windows 95? Where did that come from? You build up a Windows 10 system from the iron up, and then you're testing something and it blows up. Well, you're going to have to reinstall Windows, right? So it's often more common to use a virtual machine for sandboxing. You can use a virtual machine for sandboxing just because it's convenient. If you blow something up, no big deal. Just restore from wherever your last virtual machine snapshot is, and you can just keep on sandboxing. So when you think about sandbox, think of it more as a verb as opposed to a thing. I'm going to set up a Windows virtual machine so we can sandbox this new piece of software. Does that make sense? Okay. Hope so. GB, why do you want to know how tall I am? I'm short. Scott says I missed a question. Hi, Mike. Can you tell us about the state of quantum computing today in relation to cryptographic concepts? It's not doing anything. We are, in my opinion, at minimum of 5, probably 10, maybe 15 years away from being able to do some of the scary quantum stuff that people are talking about. Quantum computers, because they really concentrate on probabilities, are really good at, well, in theory, they're really good at cracking really tough encryptions. like RSA and asymmetric key could be pretty easily or almost trivially cracked from a quantum computer. I think the biggest quantum computer we actually have functional right now is only a 10-bit computer, so we're pretty far away from that kind of stuff. It's not that big of a nervous thing. I mean, we're already moving into some more really advanced type of asymmetric encryptions where you have public-private key. That's always the scariest part because remember, you're trying to do one thing easily that's very difficult to reverse. So things like elliptic curve cryptography, which is oh God, I don't want to get into it right now. So RSA works by taking two binary prime numbers, good Lord, and you multiply them together. It's almost impossible to the end result of multiplying two long binary numbers together, prime numbers, it's impossible to mathematically go backwards. But quantum computers look like they probably can. So they're just coming up with harder and harder ways to do it. It's interesting. Oh, I can't say anything. Almost got myself in trouble. Yeah, here you all chatting together. Nobody has any questions about what I talked about? There we go. Thank you, Thomas Robinson. What if the system is deny all check, then reboot system? Yeah, that would be bad. Yeah, the system account's really important, and you do not ever want to mess with it. System account's used for all kinds of stuff. How does this relate to desktop profiles? When I worked for Time Warner Cable, we would log into any computer and archive. Okay, all right. So, well, here I can show you. So what you're talking about is not desktop profiles. Tolowit, what you're talking about is what are called user profiles. So let me get this over here so you guys can see it. Let me get this down so you guys can't. Okay, so let's make sure we understand how all this is put together. So I go on this PC. I'm going to go on my C drive here. All right. Then I go into users. All right. These are all of the user profiles. There won't be a Timmy profile until Timmy logs in, by the way. Remember I made Timmy and it's not here? The moment we log in, we'll get there. So each one of these is where actually everything that is that user is there. My desktop is in here. All my favorites, any links I've made, my documents. Well, that's actually a link, sorry. Documents right here. All that stuff is in there. So from C:\users, Mike has all these folders and files in it. That chunk is my user profile, okay? And when we have a domain controller, the domain controller can store all that stuff, and no matter where I log on, it can bring my entire profile down. So that profile can include my desktop, my icons, everything just the way I like it. It's James Stanger from CompTIA. James, I got to warn you, I am doing one of my AMA live streams as we speak, and I've got a gazillion people. They're just excited that you're calling. So yeah, this is James Stanger from CompTIA. This is the guy I'm going to get on the live stream. James is saying hi to everybody. Can I call you back in about 20 minutes? Bye-bye. Yes, I'm going to get an answer about that home groups. Okay, so when you have these roaming user profiles, you have to have a domain controller to do these roaming user profiles. But every time you log into any computer, anywhere on the domain, you get all your stuff. Sounds good, right? Well, two problems. Number one, once you log into this other computer, all your stuff stays there too, okay? And it won't get updated until the next time you log in. So you're over there in the accounting department and you log in this one time, all of your stuff gets copied down. It's like, wow, it's taking a long time to log in. It's because it's got to copy all this stuff down. So that's not good. and other people could get to it. The other problem is that if you got a lot of stuff in your user profile, it could take like 10 minutes. And that's assuming you've got a wired network. Got it? And yeah, so those are called Roman user profiles. Now, what was the example you were showing me here? No. Where's my browser? So Tola, what you're talking about is probably when you were working for Time Warner, it just brought up your custom setup. So Tola, did it take a long time to log in sometimes? Yeah. And you guys are just chatting away with each other. Hey, USA Health Insurance Reform, I remember you. Hey, you passed the A+ with a 744. Big round of applause to you, USA Health Insurance Reform. I'm incredibly backed up on emails. USA Health Insurance Reform, just send me another email. I'm never offended by people going, dude, come on, man. I get close to 400 emails a day, and I miss some sometimes. So, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I'm never offended by people coming in with lots and lots of stuff here. Microsoft sucks. Linux rocks. Not for single sign-on. Linux is terrible. Well, I guess Linux, the Samba that comes with Linux can emulate a very old-fashioned type of domain controller. God, I don't even want to talk about this in too much detail. You can set up a Linux machine to act like a domain controller, but a very old-fashioned one, not an Active Directory one, and it does allow for some of the single sign-on. But you wouldn't be able to do the roaming user profiles. Oh, here comes some. Tahir Jaled, where's the giveaway? Man, that's the only reason you're here, huh, brother? I got 15 more minutes. I'm going to answer some more questions for the giveaway. Tahir, you have to sit here and watch. And then when I have a giveaway, it's going to be a competition about something we talked about today. I'll give you a clue. What did we talk about today? Okay. Can you set up a Raspberry Pi as a domain controller? Yeah, you could. Raspberry Pi, I think the Raspbian, which is probably the most common distro for Raspberry Pis, I wouldn't see any problem setting up a very simplistic domain controller under a Raspberry Pi. But you really put a lot of workload on a system to do that. I don't know how well it would do. Maybe if that was the only thing it did. And I'd still keep it under 20 systems. This is a lot of work for a computer to act as a domain controller. There's a reason most domain controllers are big, powerful systems. Brendan S. If you use RDP, Remote Desktop Protocol, to connect to another PC in the other room of your house, is there a security risk doing that? No. No. No, not at all. I mean, RDP is pretty secure. I mean, I've used RDP across the internet all the time with a high degree of comfort. Unless you guys know something I don't know. It's an extremely wonderful way to, especially to help other people, where you can share the screen and stuff like that. So whether they're in another room or whether they're in Japan, I'm very comfortable with RDP. Okay, so you're talking, Zod, Windows 10 sandbox? Sure. So let's say you're setting up Windows 10. You're doing a sandbox because you want to experiment with something. You want to experiment with a program, or you're setting up a game server, or you're doing something where you want to experiment to see if it works. We usually put sandboxes in virtual machines because the nature of sandboxing is that you're probably going to screw something up, and you want to be able to quickly recover and try again. That was your question, Scott, about quantum computing? I know what you're doing, Scott Jernigan. I'm not saying anything out loud. Tolowit, I thought quantum computing was already part of USB Connect. Oh, all right, Tolowit, that's actually a very funny thing. Can I do this right now? How many times have you taken a USB connector and you take the USB connector and you're plugging it in and it doesn't go in? So you flip the USB connector and you try plugging it in and it doesn't go in. You're like, there's only two ways. And then you look at it, and then you plug it in, and then it plugs in. All right? It's called USB superpositioning. It's a quantum mechanics joke. In quantum mechanics, a subatomic particle can be in many places at once. And only by looking at the subatomic particle can you get its position and its velocity vector. So it's kind of a funny joke, because until you look at the USB, it's got the spacer on both sides. Okay, that is a nerdy joke, Tolowit. Here you go, Tolowit. Here, you want a joke? How about a joke that has something to do with assuming perfectly spherical chickens? Yeah, I watch the IT crowd too. Big Bang Theory. Terrence Tech, Mike, Security Plus question. Can you explain SLE, ALE, ARO, and how they relate to business impact analysis? It's a bit confusing. No, but I'll do it. I can almost do it, but I don't remember. I don't remember SLE, ALE, and ARO off the top of my head, and there's a little formula with them. So let's save that one for Monday too. Scott Jernigan, please help me. Let's do SLE, SLE, ALE, SRO, ARO. Isn't there SRO also? Doesn't matter. But I can tell you how they relate to business impact analysis is that if you're trying to predict when things break, when you have an error, you have to consider the costs, how that might impact. And and they're predictors, right? That help you figure out, well, if this router dies, what is it going to take? I might be confusing that with mean time between failure. We'll talk about it on Monday. That's driving me crazy, Terrence Tech. I should know this stuff. I literally just worked on it. Matt H. Evening, Mike. It's 3:52. This will be my last question, then we're going to have a competition. The exam questions from your website, yes? How many questions are included? About 1,100. Are they split into test, topic, etc.? Yep. They're split 8 ways a Sunday. I mainly split my questions by chapter because I think that's the best way to learn them. I don't think that it's a good idea, although I'm starting to change my mind on doing the 1,001, the 1,002s because of overlap, but anyway. The answer, Matt H, is yep. All right, you guys are ready for a competition, right? All right. Let's do a competition. What is the competition for? Why is everybody calling me now? What will be the prize? Who said they needed a book? Taher, you wanted a book? All right, so the competition is for a book. All right, Taher, we got some ringers in here. Look, if you guys have won before, you might want to consider being nice to let others have a shot in it, but I'm not going to stop you. Whoever wants to play is in. What would be the competition? Well, obviously, it's going to be a question about NTFS. Okay, you guys ready? Here we go. Here comes the competition. The question is, and remember, the first person who types it in right wins, okay? So the question is, which NTFS permission allows people to see what's in a folder? That's it. Which NTFS permission allows people to see what's in a folder? Really? Come on, people. Everybody's like, I got to open it up. Yeah, that's what I want you to do. I'm assuming you're on a computer. You can probably look this up. If you're on your phone, sorry. I never said these competitions were fair. I just do them a lot. Am I in some way unfair here? Okay, now I'm starting to panic. Nobody? Bueller? Bueller? I'm going to let you guys dig for a minute. If you're on a phone, open up a web browser. Type in NTFS permissions. See what the NTFS permission's for. I want to know which NTFS permission allows you to see what's in a folder. Scott, I'm starting to panic. Nobody's answering. It's the 7 permissions we looked at. Okay, for some reason, my stream is not updating. Guys, my live chat is not updating. Scott Jernigan, I'm going to have to ask you to update this for me. Read is not the answer. Yeah, guys, the live chat, my live chat has stopped scrolling. So I'm going to have Scott Jernigan give me the answer. Okay, so we have a winner, and the winner is my buddy Azads. Azads, the answer is, whoop. So Taher? Taher, are you the one who's trying to get the book? Okay, all right, so you know what? Scott said Azads, and then... Oh, I see. Taher, you only typed in list folder, not list folder contents. But you know what? I know you're jonesing for a book. So you know what we're going to do? 2 winners today. Azads and Taher are each winners of, I don't know, whatever book you want. Just tell me. So guys, in order to get that book, you're going to have to contact Kathy Yale. I can't type into the live chat right now, so I'm hoping you guys hear me. Scott Jernigan is going to type in an email address. You need to contact Kathy Yale. If you are in a faraway place where we cannot ship you a book, we will either send you an ebook through Amazon, or we can give you an Amazon gift certificate for the value of the book. Sometimes in faraway places, it's very, very hard for us to do that. So anyway, number 1, congratulations to Taher and Azads. You've each won a book of your choice. So Azad Taher, you're going to have to send that email to Kathy Y at totalsem.com and then tell her which book you want. She's going to need a mailing address. And if you're far away from the United States and Canada, we're probably just going to have to send you an ebook. So hope that'll work for you. And good luck. So guys, we're wrapping up. It is time for me to take a little, get out of town a little bit. Oh, list folder contents. I got nothing on the live chat. How frustrating is this? So Scott says there's tons of people. I'm sorry if I missed anything past that. When we get back on Monday, we are going to be talking about business impact analysis. And we're also going to be taking a look at NTFS one more time. But this time when we talk about NTFS, we're going to be looking at it from a domain controller standpoint. And you can see the difference. And then also remember that anybody who shows up today, you get 50% off of our packages for A+, Net+, Security+. And also, if you just want practice questions, get 50% off those too. Scott Jernigan will post that up for you so you can take a look. So until then, next Monday, we will be back at 2 o'clock Central Daylight Time for the Mike Meyers Ask Me Anything. So until then, this is your little Uncle Mikey saying good night. Good night.